The sky did not burn when the war began. It went silent, and that silence frightened Major General James Smith more than any explosion ever could. He had commanded men through classified orbital defense drills, simulated asteroid strikes, hypersonic intercept failures, and every theoretical invasion scenario ever drafted inside the Pentagon's deepest black rooms. But nothing in any war game prepared him for the moment radar screens simply stopped seeing. They did not flicker, did not glitch, did not crash. They stopped, as if something above Earth had issued a command that human technology no longer possessed permission to observe the sky. Inside the Colorado Command Facility, buried beneath granite and electromagnetic shielding, analysts leaned toward their stations in synchronized confusion while the digital globe hovering over the central table froze mid-rotation. "Sir, satellite uplink has disengaged," a communications officer said carefully, but her breathing betrayed her. James kept his posture straight, his voice level. "Reinitialize the constellation. Full system purge and restart." Fingers moved rapidly across touch panels. Nothing responded. The globe projection dimmed until it resembled a dead planet. Then the lighting shifted, not because power failed, but because the atmosphere outside had changed. Live feeds from weather satellites flickered back momentarily, enough to show clouds stretching thin across North America like fabric pulled too tight. The blue of the sky dulled into a metallic sheen. A ripple spread across the stratosphere in expanding circles, as though something immense had touched the surface of reality itself. Civilian aircraft began transmitting distress signals, without understanding what they were seeing. Military interceptors launched automatically under defensive escalation protocols, engines screaming toward targets no one could properly define. James watched through helmet cam feeds as pilots climbed, reporting visual distortions. Contact at high altitude, geometry inconsistent. One pilot began before his transmission froze mid-word. His jet stopped in place against the curvature of Earth, suspended without contrail. One by one, every airborne craft halted, perfectly still like models arranged in a museum exhibit. No explosions, no debris, just the sudden arrest of motion. Every person in the facility stiffened at the same time. The alien transmission did not arrive through speakers or radios. It resonated inside bone and bloodstream, a harmonic pressure forming words without sound. The voice was layered, multiple tones speaking in unified cadence. "Resistance is structurally inefficient," several officers gasped, clutching their heads. James did not flinch outwardly, though the vibration behind his eyes was disorienting. "Launch ground batteries," he ordered, because command required response even when the logic of victory dissolved. Missile silos opened across continents in synchronized defiance. Warheads ignited and tore upward in arcs of fire toward the warped sky. Tracking cameras followed their ascent until, at a fixed altitude, each missile disassembled. Casings peeled apart molecule by molecule. Guidance fins separated into drifting fragments. Nuclear cores divided into constituent atoms that shimmered briefly before scattering into harmless particulate. Humanity's most powerful weapons dissolved without resistance. The alien voice returned, unchanged. Escalation acknowledged. Outcome unchanged. Gravity shifted inside the command center. Papers lifted. Consoles tilted. A deep vibration rippled through granite walls. Soldiers were thrown upward as if the direction of down had been revoked. James seized a steel railing as the ceiling above the operations floor folded open without fracturing, the rock parting in seamless curvature to reveal a descending column of pale light. It emitted no heat, no glare, it simply negated opposition. Personnel were lifted one by one into its path, bodies drawn upward despite frantic grasping. James shouted for order, though he understood order was no longer a human asset in this confrontation. The light wrapped around him with chilling gentleness. The last thing he saw was the command table shrinking below as he ascended through layers of earth and cloud towards something vast enough to make the planet look fragile. Gravity shifted inside the command center. Papers lifted, consoles tilted. A deep vibration rippled through granite walls. Soldiers were thrown upward as if the direction of down had been revoked. James seized a steel railing as the ceiling above the operations floor folded open without fracturing, the rock parting in seamless curvature to reveal a descending column of pale light. It emitted no heat, no glare. It simply negated opposition. Personnel were lifted one by one into its path, bodies drawn upward despite frantic grasping. James shouted for order, though he understood order was no longer a human asset in this confrontation. The light wrapped around him with chilling gentleness. The last thing he saw was the command table shrinking below as he ascended through layers of earth and cloud toward something vast enough to make the planet look fragile. Consciousness returned gradually. He tasted iron in the air, Gravity pulsed inconsistently, heavier one moment, lighter the next. He lay on a surface that adapted to his weight, neither rigid nor soft. The chamber around him curved organically, architecture alive with subtle motion, as if constructed from material that breathed. There were no visible fixtures, yet the room glowed faintly from within. Suspended around him in vertical transparent columns were other humans, unconscious but intact. Officers, enlisted personnel, civilians from various nations. Hundreds within sight. Beyond the chamber, through a widening aperture, he saw stars stretching into luminous threads. The vessel was not traveling through space, it was folding it, compressing distance into layered corridors. An alien presence phased into existence before him. It was tall, elongated, its surface reflective but not metallic, limbs moving with precise economy. 3 vertical slits where eyes might be rotated slowly, emitting faint light. Subject identified. Command-level human, the layered voice stated directly inside his nervous system. James forced himself upright despite restraint, fields activating around wrists and ankles. "You picked the wrong officer," he replied evenly. A pause followed, analytical rather than emotional. Humor detected. Irrelevant. A platform rose beneath James, elevating him into a scanning lattice that shimmered across his torso. He felt intrusion without pain, memories surfacing against his will. Childhood mornings, flight school ceremonies, classified briefings, the face of his wife. Memory clusters mapped, emotional anchors identified, the alien voice noted. James clenched his jaw. "Stay out of my head." The primary alien tilted slightly. Cognitive resilience above average. Defiance correlates with extended viability. A filament extended toward his forehead, hovering close enough to stir cold air. Instead of agony, he experienced subtraction, as though copies of neural pathways were being recorded and removed simultaneously. He understood then that this was not interrogation, it was categorization. When the scanning concluded, he was transferred into a containment sphere. No bars, no doors, only an invisible boundary defined by pressure. Sound dissipated instantly. The floor shifted constantly to prevent balance stabilization. Sleep proved nearly impossible under pulsing gravitational cycles. Across the chamber, other humans remained isolated in similar spheres. Occasionally, an alien guardian would glide past, observing without visible reaction. At one point, a nearby captive began screaming uncontrollably. A narrow beam intersected the sphere, and within seconds the man's expression flattened. His breathing steadied. His panic evaporated as though edited from existence. Emotional amplitude dampened by precise neurological interference. James inhaled slowly, forcing control over his own response. They were not breaking prisoners with brutality. They were rewriting them. Time became abstract. Hunger never fully manifested. Fatigue accumulated but did not overwhelm. The aliens regulated biological thresholds with calculated precision. Eventually, the containment sphere dissolved, and he was escorted through corridors that curved in impossible geometry, gravity shifting sideways and then forward as the architecture responded to unseen commands. He entered a chamber vast enough to feel like standing inside a hollow star. 3 immense entities hovered above, more complex than the others, luminous patterns rippling across their elongated forms. Authority radiated from them in harmonic resonance. "Human Officer James Smith," they intoned collectively. "Your species initiated hostile expansion into monitored territory." James met their rotating gaze without lowering his head. "You invaded Earth." A long pause followed, dense with analysis. Perspective variance acknowledged. Outcome remains constant. A projection unfolded before him. Earth enveloped in a containment grid of faint geometric lines. Orbital defense arrays neutralized. Cities subdued but intact. This was occupation, not annihilation. "You think we surrender?" he asked quietly. The central judge inclined slightly. "Your species demonstrates irrational persistence. Study required." He felt the weight of the word study more heavily than death. Execution would have been final. Study implied duration. As he was removed from the tribunal chamber, he glimpsed something in a distant containment sphere that halted his breath. A being unlike any human, restrained but alert, observing the aliens with calculating focus. Earth was not the first civilization to be harvested. It was merely the newest. And somewhere beyond the folded corridors of this vessel, the scale of conflict extended far past the fragile boundaries of one planet.